Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Joy. If this is your first time seeing this very beautiful face, please do not make it your last. Do well to like, subscribe and share and be a part of this community, because over here we talk about everything juicy, everything wholesome, ranging from motherhood, lifestyle, my life in Australia, and migration tips and tricks for people who are looking to come into Australia. Okay, so very quickly I'm going to talk to you about the things you need to know before getting a job in Australia. Now, I know that you may be wondering, I just got into Australia and I need to get a job. I don't even know what their work culture is. I don't even know how to navigate. I don't even know how to behave when I find myself in that position. If you find yourself in that category, then take a seat, get a drink, because this video is for you. So the first thing you may be wondering is, what is it like to work in Australia? It is what you have known to state that the Australian workplace tends to be informal whilst maintaining a very professional setting. What this means is that everybody is considered equal, even though their role or their pay may be different. It also means that people do not dress all gagged up in suit and ties. People dress very casually comfortable to work. So you could see someone wearing a shirt, a jeans, and sneakers to work because they want to feel comfortable. Okay, so the environment is in such a way that no one feels intimidated by the other. You have your freedom of speech, freedom to do what you want to do as long as you're within the code of ethics and code of conduct of your company. Also, everyone's position is respected, everyone's opinion is heard, valued, and taken into consideration, even though the final decision may not boil down to that, but your decision would definitely be taken into consideration. Although some companies are hierarchical in nature, where the big boss makes all the decisions, for most companies they tend to throw out the decision making to the board or to the team, and then they just pick everybody's opinion. So at the end of the day, whatever they decide will be like a fragment of everybody's thought and opinion, if that makes sense. The next is the work hours. So in Australia, the typical start time for work is 9 a.m. to end 5 p.m. or start time to be 8 a.m. to end 4 p.m. It all depends on the type of job you do, where you work, and what your work comprises of. For the most part, the Australian work system is very flexible in the sense that you can choose your time and how you want to work, especially if your job doesn't exactly demand you to see people face to face. Okay, so there is a bit of flexibility with that. Also, there is the option of working from home for most companies, all thanks to COVID-19, when things went from face to face to Teams and Zooms and all of them visuals. Okay, so yeah, there's a lot of flexibility around that. Again, it all depends on your company and your employer. One thing I like about the Australian workplace culture is that although the flexibility is there, but they also go like the extra mile for people who are probably pregnant or are nursing mothers or have things they need to do that require them to actually stay at home, as long as you get the job done. That is one flexibility that I personally enjoyed when I had my baby, and to be honest, it was so helpful. You can also negotiate your contracts if you want a full-time, part-time. Even if you used to be a full-time staff, you can decide that, I want to do part-time now because of my family situation. Whatever it is you want to do, I like that they are really flexible, and it just makes you want to stay longer with that company because you're not under any pressure, or you're not tense, you're not feeling uncomfortable working there, and that's why you see a lot of people in Australia, they stay in a company for 5, 10, 15 years just because they feel very comfortable working in that space. Moving on is the work environment. So the Australian work environment and its people are mostly very relaxed. Australians tend to be super friendly. They are mostly laughing, making jokes, cracking you up, They just tend to make the workspace very friendly and at ease. As a new immigrant, you need to be very careful to draw the line as to how much you play even while at work, because the idea behind being super friendly is to just enable you to get your job done. Okay, so the fact that you're being so jovial or you're joking and laughing about a lot of things doesn't take away the fact that you're there to work. Okay, so you need to actually draw the line and know when to get down to serious business. One striking thing for me is how they call each other by their first name. So there's no sir, boss, ma. This is a very contrary practice from where I come from. Okay, because where I come from, you call your boss ma, sir. Mr. You just put all those prefixes, and sometimes it can make the work environment quite tensed and uncomfortable. But in Australia, we don't use all those prefixes, all those samas. You just call people by their names. And in situations where you have like a very long name, they can decide to just abbreviate it, or you tell them what you'd rather be called. And I love Australians because they respect that. Whatever you tell them your abbreviation is, or what you would like to call, that is what they will call you. And in situations whereby they're trying to probably pronounce your name for the first time and they don't know how to, do ask you, how do you pronounce your name? Okay, and you tell them, and they try it, and they ask you, are you okay with me calling you this? And it just sums it up to them wanting to make you very comfortable and feel respected, okay, even in the workplace. So that is so beautiful to see. Australians are the most polite and respectful human beings I have ever come across. And I think they also have this thing for emotional intelligence. They are so emotionally intelligent that they know when to initiate a conversation, how to initiate it, and how to table an issue before you without making you feel uncomfortable whatsoever. This is so beautiful to see, because there are times when you make a mistake at work, or you're very tense because you did something that you shouldn't do. And in your mind, you're like, oh my God, I'm going to get sacked, I'm going to get fired. And they just find a way around trying to address that issue, even though you get to bear the consequences, but they know how to softly address that issue and just speak to you very nicely. Australians are also very big on emphatic words and soft tones. So you see things like thank you, sorry, I beg your pardon, excuse me, no worries, my pleasure. These things are like the go-to for Australians, okay? They consider that as respect. So somebody does something for you, you don't say thank you. That's they take offense by it because they feel like you're not being grateful. You make a mistake that affects them, or you do something that affects them and you don't say sorry, that is disrespectful to them. Okay, I remember one time I had issue with my colleague at work because I asked her to hand me something and she said I didn't say please, and she took offense and she walked out of the room. Okay, and that was like and that wasn't like my early months of migrating to Australia. Okay, and that was like a very big shocker for me, because that was like a rude way to find out that their workplace culture is totally different from what I'm used to back home. Okay, so these are things that you need to look out for. These are things you need to be careful about. Okay, gratitude is a must for them. You need to show gratitude when things are done. You need to apologize when you make mistakes. You need to ask for clarity in a very polite way when you don't understand what you're talking about, or like you're in a meeting and there's a conversation going on and you're lost. You need to find a way to tell them, oh please, I need help, or could you say that again, or could you explain that to me because I do not understand, very politely. And that's all that matters to them. As long as you're being polite, they can repeat that 1,001 times for you. That is how nice they are, to be honest. Moving on to being direct. Australians are the most straightforward and direct people I have ever met in my existence. And I'm saying my existence because I've heard stories of different cultures or different countries and how they address things. Australians are so straightforward to the point that if they do not want a job or they are tired of the role, they'll tell you, oh, I feel bored in this role, or I'm tired, or I'm resigning because I do not enjoy your company anymore. There is no beating around the bush. They are so straightforward. They'll tell you how they feel in the most polite way. Okay, so they are not on about inconveniencing themselves to convenience you or to make you feel good about yourself. They will tell you how it is, again, in the most polite way. But contrary to where I come from, people tend to be very subtle. People tend to hide their true feelings. People tend to pretend because they don't want to hurt you, or because they don't want to come across as being ungrateful or being a certain way. Over here, people don't exactly care. They don't care. They tell you how they feel, again, very politely, but they tell you how they feel, and they just like to put it on the table for reference sake. And to be honest, all this can come across as culture shock because you're not used to this system. Okay, for someone like me that came from Africa, it was such a culture shock for me just knowing that things are done differently over here. So it took me a lot of time to unlearn what I already knew and then learn new pattern, like learn the system. Okay, just like people always say, when you go to Rome, you behave like the Romans. So when you come to Australia, you behave like the Australians. All right, the next is language. So one beautiful thing about Australia is that the workplace tends to be very multicultural. What this means is that you're going to see people from different parts of the world. Your colleague could be an Indian, a Liberian, a Zimbabwean, an Asian, a Korean, a Chinese. You see people from different cultures of the world working in the same space. What this means is that it's considered unprofessional to speak your local language. in the work environment, especially if you're talking to your colleague, or you're talking to somebody else, and your colleagues are there. It is highly disrespectful. They find it unprofessional and disrespectful, and they could actually take that up, and it could be a big issue. Also, if you're in a workplace and you have a colleague that you share cultural values with, or cultural beliefs, or you guys speak the same language, it is considered highly unprofessional to speak your local language in a workspace. Again, especially when people are there, you have your fellow colleagues there, it just makes them feel a certain kind of way. And I've been in that situation before where I was sitting with Indians and they were speaking their local language, and this was even during lunch break. Okay, this was during lunch. It's not like we're talking about work related things, but I just remember how it made me feel. It kind of made me feel off, because I feel like, okay, this is supposed to be a workplace. You're supposed to be conversing in English and not local languages. Okay, so that could actually be a big turn off. Some people will go as far as writing a complaint email to the HR, because as far as they're concerned, you're probably insulting them in your local language, or you're probably saying awful things about them, and because you're using your local language, you're intentionally doing it because they will not understand. Okay, so people can actually go as far as making it a big deal because they feel like that shouldn't be. And to be honest, it shouldn't be, because it's a workplace for a reason, right? So in Australia, it is common practice to make eye contact while talking to somebody. So the idea of putting your face down or looking somewhere else can be considered disrespectful and unprofessional. I know this may be different for people with different cultural beliefs and practices, especially for people who cover their faces, or people who are very shy to talk to people. But in the workplace, you're expected to look them eye to eye to have that conversation. And if there is any reason why you don't want to, or why you can't, then you should let them know so they don't take offense by it. Also, when you meet somebody for the first time, it is common practice to shake them as a form of greeting. Okay, so in Australia, we don't peck, we don't hug. That can be seen as and I know in some other parts of the world it is common practice to hug, especially like in Germany and other countries like that. But over here, we don't hug. Okay, it is simply a handshake. And when you're leaving that space, it is common practice to say bye from either a distance or from close proximity. Again, we don't hug, we don't peck, we don't do all the mushy stuff. That is considered icky. So yeah, just have that in mind. All right, now speaking extensively on multiculturalism, because you work with different people from different parts of the world, it is very common for you to see people bringing their local dishes to eat. It is very rude for you to tell them that their food doesn't smell nice or it smells icky. Not be too expressive or too opinionated about what they are eating or their lifestyle, because it is actually none of your business, no matter how close or how friendly they tend to be. Now, this leads me to talking about the colleague relationship. No matter how friendly you are in your workplace, no matter how giggly you both can be, no matter how you guys share the same values or beliefs or whatever, you should understand that your colleagues are not your friends. Okay, what that means is there's certain things you should not discuss with your colleagues in the workplace, especially things that are relating to your personal life. Why I'm saying this is because you need to draw the line between business and pleasure, or business and personal issues. In some cases, your colleagues can decide to use your personal information against you, and although this can be seen as betrayal, but it is what it is, because you're not supposed to discuss it in the first place with them. Okay, so you need to draw the line as to the kind of things you discuss with your colleagues. Again, you guys can be very friendly. You guys can even be as friendly as inviting them to your home for dinner or for lunch or for whatever, but just draw the line so at the end of the day you don't feel like you're being betrayed. Still on multiculturalism, Australia celebrates multicultural events such as Diwali, Festival of Lights for the Indians, Lunar New Year for the Chinese. We celebrate a lot of things. Now, in the workspace, during these celebrations, they tend to bring a plate. What that means is every person may be expected to bring their local dishes to work. In such situations, you should put other people into consideration. Now, you need to ask them if they have any dietary requirements or dietary restrictions. If the dish you want to make is very spicy, you need to let them know before time that, oh, this food is usually made spicy or too salty or without salt at all. Okay, you need to let them know ahead of time, because what usually happens is that when there is a cultural bring a plate event, or where people have to come to the office to eat, people usually come hungry. Okay, nobody brings lunch because they believe I'm bringing my cultural food and every other person is bringing their food. So the idea is I eat what you bring, you eat what I bring, if that makes sense. So it's a beautiful way of just learning people's culture. Okay, I remember when I first came into Australia, I did not like Indian foods. Like, I didn't like it. I didn't even like Thai. But right now, guess whose favorite food is Thai? Myself. Okay, I love Thai foods to the core. I love Indian foods. I love their bread. I love everything about their culture. Okay, and all thanks to Bring a Plate Party, because that's when I get to taste and I'm like, this is nice, you know. So that is it. So you need to consider other people when it comes to their cultural beliefs, their cultural preferences, and all whatnot. Okay, so in the Australian workspace, it is very common for colleagues to hang out after work, to have a drink in the pub, talk about work related things, you know. It is not compulsory for you to join them, but it's a common practice. What this means is, if your colleague says, oh, can we go get a drink after work, if you're available to, that's fine. But mind you, you're going to pay your own bills, okay? The person who's invited is not going to pay the bill for you. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because, contrary to what we're used to back home in Africa, anytime a person says, oh, let's go grab a drink, whoever initiated that conversation or initiated that idea tends to pay the bill for everyone. Over here, the case is different, okay? You're going to answer your father's name. Everybody's going to swipe their card, okay? Just go with your card because you're going to pay your own bills, all right? Like I said before, this work social culture is not compulsory and it's not a general practice, even though it's a common practice. What that means is, in your workplace, your colleagues may not be interested to hang out after work. So it is not expected that they should. So still speaking on socializing, it's very common for you to have a round table lunch with your colleagues. So during lunch breaks, you'll tend to be in the dining space where you guys would gist while having lunch or talk about work stress and all that stuff. Again, you need to know what you should share and what you shouldn't share, okay? That is not an opportunity to tell them your family story or your family life or whatever it is they're not interested in, because to be honest, no one cares, no one is interested, okay? It's just an opportunity to bond with them, ask questions that are relating to work if you have issues, and just, you know, enjoy yourself, okay? So that is also a very common practice. It's also a very common practice for colleagues to grab takeaway coffee and to take coffee like every other hour at work. Coffee is a thing. I don't even know why it is so, but Australians and coffee, they are 5 and 6, guys. They are 5 and 6, so you need to understand that, okay? So in Australia, punctuality is a thing. You have a meeting in 10 minutes. If you get there 5 minutes before time, that is amazing. They find it disrespectful when you have a meeting and you're running late and you don't even deem it fit to call them or send a message to say, oh, I can't be in the meeting because I'm running late or my other meeting ended late. So you need to actually let them know when you're running late. They find it quite disrespectful, okay? And even in situations whereby you keep doing it time and time again and you keep apologizing, it doesn't take away the fact that it's disrespectful. There can be consequences for it, okay? So you need to have that in mind. The reason why I'm pointing this out is because, you know how we Africans do the African time thing, and you're like, okay, meeting is for so time, you can do whatever. It doesn't apply to the workplace. It doesn't. Like, don't even think about it. It doesn't apply to the workplace. Punctuality is a thing. Like, it is such a big thing in the Australian workplace culture, all right? So you need to avoid swear or curse words, anything that cuts across as offensive. You also need to avoid jokes and comments that come across as offensive. And if in a situation you realize or you're being told that what you said or did came across as offensive, please apologize immediately. This is because Australia has very strict anti-discriminatory laws. What this means is you can never make comments about people's appearance, their gender, their ethnicity, their cultural beliefs, their race, skin color, background, choice of lifestyle, whatever they decide to call themselves, be it he, she, they, their. It is not in your place to have an opinion about that, okay? This can come across as discrimination and you can get fired and sued for it. You need to read up on the Australian discriminatory laws and understand that this is not a joke. They don't joke, okay? So you need to be careful what you say about people and how you address them. In some cases, when you see somebody and you're not sure what to address them as, you can ask them, how would you like to be addressed? Okay, that way you're just giving them the power to tell you who they are or how they want you to address them, all right? So that is something to keep in mind. Also, talking about politics and religion is not a common workplace practice in Australia. This is because, like I said, Australia is very multicultural and there are different people with different cultural beliefs. You might say something that might come across as offensive, okay? You might say something about somebody's religion and they can take it up very seriously and you can get fired or sued because they will tell you, oh, you're discriminating or you said this and it has affected me in so way. You know, people have different ways they react to situations and to topics. These topics are sensitive, so you need to be careful how you talk about it and what you say. And even in situations whereby you're in a round table with your colleagues and they're talking about politics or religion and they're asking your opinion, if you do not know how to express yourself, if you're not sure if whatever you say will come across as offensive, it's okay to tell them, I'm sorry, I don't have an opinion or I don't have anything to contribute to this particular topic. Nobody will beat you, nobody will bite you, okay? So it is better to be safe than sorry. You need to avoid using excessive slang words like mate. And I know this is a very common slang in Australia because everyone calls themselves hey mate, hey mate. That is very common, but in the workplace, it is not professional. Although this largely depends on the field you find yourself. For example, people that work in the construction company, they call themselves hey mate, they call themselves mates, and they don't see it as anything. But if you're like in a proper 9-to-5 setting where you're working with different people, especially people with different cultural beliefs, then you should address them properly, okay? And you should avoid using slang words. Again, this can come across as offensive, especially if they do not understand that slang or they don't use it, okay? So you need to be very careful. Last thing I want to talk about is the end of the year party in the Australian work environment. Now, this is a very common practice in most companies. At the end of the year, they organize parties where they have competitions, they have games, they have different things that just lights up the mood, and you know, people come together and celebrate. And I know this practice cuts across to different countries, it's not just Australia, but I just thought to chip that in. So during the end of the year party, they tend to give awards and special recognition to staff that have done excellently well. They tend to give accolades to those that deserve it. In some workplaces, they tend to do what they call gift exchange, where you pick somebody's name and you get a gift for that person and the other person gets you something. That is just a way of celebrating, okay? Now, in addition to this, there's also something we call Christmas in July. So because winter doesn't fall in the Christmas period, unlike other countries like the USA, Canada, UK, our winter falls in July, okay? That is the peak of our winter. So what most workplaces do is to organize an event at the peak of winter, okay, which is usually in July, just to have a feel of what it is to enjoy Christmas in winter, if that makes sense. I know this sounds very cliche, but it is such a beautiful feeling. I've attended Christmas in July parties twice and I can tell you that it is so beautiful, okay? It is amazing. Now, like I said, this is only peculiar to Australia because of the weather difference, but yeah, it is such a beautiful feeling and it is something I know that a lot of people enjoy as well. So we have come to the end of this video. I want you to tell me in the comment section which of these workplace cultures resonates with you and which country you currently live or reside in, okay? Let me know in the comment section. Let me know if there's anything I'm missing out, because I know I cannot obviously cover everything, but let me know what your experience has been so far, okay? Thank you so much for watching. Again, do not forget to like, subscribe, share, and be a part of this community, all right? Until next time, bye.